success story is going to be a little different, whereas the first two we were looking at specific types of marketing campaigns implemented by different startups. For this last one, we're going to look at one startup and how they've sort of successfully launched new initiatives all during the COVID pandemic that have changed their business for the better, and how they did that. So let's get going. This startup is called IndieWalls. And what IndieWalls does, they're a very cool business. They facilitate the production of world-class art for the hospitality industry. So hotels, restaurants, and also global brands, Pepsi and Google in there. If they want a huge piece of art in their workspace, they go to IndieWalls. IndieWalls has a network of thousands of independent artists around the world. And so these two pictures on the right are just examples of some of the products they were working on in January 2020. The top one is at a Marriott in Aruba. These are sort of big, sexy projects with big budgets. And at the beginning of this year, IndieWalls' business was doing really well. They were working with big clients, global brands. They were doing ambitious projects. They were consistently growing. And then you can guess what happened. COVID happened. And for a company that works with hotels and restaurants and workplaces, they were drastically impacted. So this is what happened to their business. They, if we move on to the next slide, they had no new projects at all coming in for 2.5 months. They ended up having to go through layoffs on their team. And in fact, they decided to not just leave their office space temporarily, but they broke their lease and became a remote team. Their business was drastically impacted. But what happened next was what really, really impressed us. They were talking to their customers, and their customers were saying, their customers being hotels and restaurants, we're gonna just slow down and lay low and save money for a couple months. And instead of saying, okay, we're gonna do that too, what IndieWalls did was say, no, we're gonna move faster. We're going to be first to market with new initiatives, and we're gonna pivot our business. So we wanna show you a couple of the different initiatives that they've launched. The first one is called Indie Signs. Indie Signs, the tagline is creative signage designed by independent artists. So this means that, hotels, restaurants, they were no longer interested in buying art, quite frankly. It was sort of a luxury for them in March. However, what they were buying was signage to help enforce social distancing protocols. And so IndieWalls said, we have all of the business infrastructure to make signage. We're gonna start doing that. And so this initiative was really born out of the question that IndieWalls asked itself. Just go to the next. What else does our expertise allow us to do? So they have a art production facility, and they started using it to make signs, and this has been really successful for them. They have an entirely new revenue stream, and they actually now consider themselves in the signage business. Their art projects have started to pick up again, but they're not going to stop doing these signs because they have the capability to do it, and their customers are demanding it. So the next initiative is called Give a Sign, which is actually kind of doing a similar product, but the intention behind it is different. So once again, it's IndieWalls pivoting into doing signage, but the signage they were making were big thank you signs that they hung up in front of various hospitals in New York, the ones that were hit hardest during the pandemic. And these signs were put up within 3 or 4 weeks of the lockdown happening in New York. And how they approached this initiative is they partnered with their independent artists to design the signs, and then they got donors to fund the production of the signs. And those donors were some of IndieWalls' customers. So again, we see them here responding to this question of how can we give back to our community, and how can we get our customers involved? And so the important part of this initiative is that it's not a revenue driver for IndieWalls. You're probably going to stop doing it once things are, improving, which they are in New York, thank goodness. But it was a way for them to keep in touch with their customers and to respond to a customer's need. They were talking to the people who were in the hotel business, people who were real estate developers who they worked with, and they felt really helpless as things were shutting down, like they couldn't do anything good. And IndieWalls created a way using their existing expertise to allow their customers to still feel active, to still get involved, and to keep the conversation going with their customers instead of just, you know, not talking to them for a couple months. The last initiative we're going to talk about is similar in that it became a way for IndieWalls to keep the conversation going with their customers, even if they weren't buying art. This is a really fun initiative. It is a video interview series, basically a talk show called Between Two Screens. It's hosted by Ari Grazi, the president of IndieWalls, and they've launched 19 episodes of this. The episodes are about 5 minutes long, and it's an interview show where Ari interviews members of the IndieWalls community. That means founders and CEOs of design firms, former and current customers, and artists, and leads these really engaging interviews about how they've been responding to the last couple of months. And again, this is them asking themselves this question: how can we continue to collaborate with our leads and customers, even if the traditional, the main function of our business has slowed down, but how can we stay in touch with these people? And so usually with video, you would think that the main KPI for video is, you know, how many views do we have? How many people are sharing it on social media? But really, they're getting value out of these videos, even if no one watches it, because they're being able to, they're engaging customers. And we've heard great stories from this initiative in particular, where CEOs of large design firms who would have never really called IndieWalls out of the blue before are calling and saying, "Oh, I want to be on your show. I want to put myself out there." So it was a win-win for both the customers and IndieWalls, and we were really impressed by that. So if we zoom out and look at the playbook overall for these different initiatives, some points stick out to us that we think can be applied even if you're not in the, you know, commercial art, hospitality, tech space, which I'm assuming most of you aren't. But what IndieWalls did was really interesting. They found new opportunities in their existing expertise. They said, we produce art, we can easily produce signs, and people need signs right now. Secondly, moving fast for them was, moving fast is always important. I'm sure all of you will want to move fast all the time, but moving fast became just the most important thing for them. They launched these initiatives within 3 weeks for all of them from when the lockdown started. And, you know, not really even a soft launch, like a full Shopify page for the signs, the media coverage they got. They were on the front page of the New York Times website within a month of everything locking down in New York. So they were really out there very quickly, and that helped them gain momentum, and it kept them top of mind for their customers. They also got their whole team involved. At the beginning of the lockdown in New York, they had a big blue sky brainstorming session with the whole team, not just senior management. And these ideas came from team members. They weren't just, you know, coming from the CEO and the co-founder, the creative director. They were coming from everyone who knew the business in and out and could help lead it forward. And finally, and this is collaborating on content with leads and customers, not just pushing out content via email or LinkedIn, but making the content creation a two-way street and making sure that you're actually continuing to have a conversation with customers, even if the traditional customer startup relationship has paused for the time being, because when business picks back up, that relationship will still be there.